In this class, we will learn Daf Dalid of Maseches Sotah. In this class, we will learn Daf Dalid of Maseches Sotah. Our Gemara consists of 4 parts. Number 1, our Gemara will present 6 challenges and 4 inquiries on the brisa that teaches the Shir Stira. At the end of Daf Gimel and at the beginning of our Daf, we learned a brisa which was presented in the previous class that presented numerous opinions regarding what is the time of stira. The witnesses testify that the woman secluded herself, the Sotah secluded herself for a certain amount of time. What's that amount of time? So we presented that brisa, and our Gemara will present 6 challenges and 4 inquiries on the brisa. There will also be, as we'll see, a teaching that will explain why there are so many opinions. Number 2, our Gemara will discuss the pasuk mentioned in the brisa. At the end of that brisa, a pasuk was quoted where it says, Ki ba'ad isha zoyna ad kikar lechem. So the Gemara will discuss that pasuk and relate it to the Netilas Yadayim. Number 3, at the end of that pasuk where it says, Ki ba'ad isha zoyna, the pasuk concludes, Ve'eshes ish nefesh yakara tatzar. So our Gemara will go on to discuss the second part of that pasuk, of Be'ad isha zoyna, and related to the severity of Isser Eishes Ish. And the 4th part is that our Gemara will discuss the severity of Gasus Haruach, and that will be triggered, as we'll see in the class itself, by something that will be mentioned in the 3rd part. It'll trigger a discussion on Gasus Haruach, which we'll have in our daf, and then it will be elaborated on at much greater length on the next daf, on Daf Hey. Our Gemara begins with a question. V'chol hani lomali. Why do we need all of these? If we look at the brisa, it said v'kama shir stira. What is the amount of time of stira that the Edom testify that the woman secluded herself? What's the amount of time that she has to seclude herself to be considered stira? And the brisa said kidei tuma, kidei bia, kidei ha'ara. It's the amount of time of tuma to do an avera. Kidei bia, the amount of time to do the act of bia. Kedei ha'ara, it's the amount of time it takes for the beginning of bia. Why do we need all of these? And the Gemara answers, tzrichi, we need all of them. And the Gemara will now explain why we need each of them. The itana kedei tuma, if it said kedei tuma alone and it didn't add on kedei bia, then hava amina kedei tumasa ve'artzusa. I'd say it's the amount of time it takes for tuma and artzusa, which means not only the amount of time it takes for the woman to do an avera, but also the amount of time it takes for her to be convinced. We need both of those. Then we could say she did an avera. Kamash malon kedei bia. It teaches us kedei bia. It's not necessary for her to be there the amount of time for tuma and artzusa, but rather just Kedei bia, the act of bia, not also being convinced. So we need kedei bia. And the Gemara continues, so we understand why we need tumah followed by kedei bia. We're going to go in order. How about just having tumah and bia? The Gemara says, v'itana kedei bia. And if it said kedei bia and it didn't add on kedei ha'ara, hava amina kedei gmar bia. I'd say it means enough time for gmar bia, the whole act of bia. Kamash Malon, it teaches us Kedei Ha'ara. So we need Kedei Ha'ara to tell us that it's not necessary for them to be secluded for the whole act of Bia, but rather it's enough that it's even just for the beginning of the act of Bia. So now we understand why if we just said Kedei Tuma, it's not enough, we have to add on Kedei Bia. And that's also not enough, we have to add on Kedei Ha'ara. But now the question is, why can't we just say Kedei Bia and Kedei Ha'ara? Or, as we'll see later, there's another option. Right now, let's focus on Kedei Bia and Kedei Ha'ara. Why can't we just say those? It says the Gemara that if it said Kedei Ha'ara, meaning after Kedei Bia, then what would we say? Hava Amina, Kedei Ha'ara, Ve'artzusa. We'd say it's enough time for the beginning of Bia, but also to be convinced, because the way we'd read it is, Kedei Bia means the amount of time it takes for Bia, the whole act of Bia, including being convinced. The Brisa says, no, Kedei Ha'ara. Convinced, yes, but not the whole act of bia, just the beginning of it. And therefore, the Brisa has to first say Kedei Tumah, which is the whole act of Tumah. We consider it means both bia and being convinced. Once it says Kedei Bia, it excludes being convinced. And as Rashi explains how this will also answer why it doesn't say Kedei Tumah and Kedei Ha'ara and drop Kedei Bia. Because if it said Kedei Tumah, we'd say it means the being convinced as well as the act of Bia. And then Kedei Ha'ara says, yes, leave convinced in place, but not the whole act of Bia, just the beginning. And so therefore it comes out that we need all three things to be written. And then the Gemara, the Brisa concluded, Kedei Hakafas Dekel. And how long is Hara alone? It's Kedei Hakafas Dekel. That was the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. The Gemara now proceeds to present a question. Veramini, they raise the contradiction from a brisa on this previous brisa. What does it say in the brisa? It says in the pasuk V'nistara. The brisa asks V'kama shir stira. What is the amount of time for stira? And the brisa answers Kishu emer v'hi nitma. You could say that it means Kedei Tuma, Kedei Bia, Kedei Ha'ara, exactly like the previous brisa. But now here the Brisa differs, and the Brisa presents 5 different opinions. In our Brisa, the previous one, we had 9. Here we have 5. Rabbi Eliezer says it's Kedei Tumah, Kedei Bia, Kedei Hara, Kedei Chazaras Dekel. Rabbi Yeshua says Kedei Mezigas HaKais, the amount of time it takes to mix the cup of wine, to add water to it. Ben Azai says Kedei L'shtoisa, it's the amount of time it takes to drink the cup of wine. Rabbi Kiva says Kedei Litzleis Beitza, the amount of time it takes to roast an egg. And Rabbi Huda ben Beseira says Kedei L'goima, the amount of time it takes to swallow an egg. So we have the contradiction in a question. The next part is in the gray with the arrows pointing up and down because they are what the question is from, and it will lead into the question. And now the question is as follows. When we read the Brisa, what is our understanding? Kasalka daitin, hainu akafas dekel, hainu chazaras dekel. When it said in the first Brisa, kedei akafas dekel, and the second one it says kedei chazaras dekel, in our understanding, it's one and the same thing. So the problem is, Hasam Amar Rabbi Yishmael kedei akafas dekel. In the previous Brisa, if we look at the top, Rabbi Yishmael said it's the amount of time of hakafas dekel. And Rabbi Eliezer argued on him. Upolig Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Eliezer argued with him. And here, Rabbi Eliezer is the one that's saying it's Kedei Chazaras Dekel. So he's contradicting himself. So we have a question. And the Gemara answers, Amar Abaya. Abaya says they're not the same thing. Hakafa beregel, Chazara beruach. Hakafa means to walk around the palm tree. That's the amount of time. Chazara means that the palm tree returns to its position after being blown by the wind. So it's 2 different times. After we establish that Akafa is by foot and Chazara is by the wind, the Gemara presents an inquiry. By Rav Ashi, Chazara Baruach. When we said Chazara Baruach, is it ki hechi da azul v'hoder asi? Is it that it goes and comes back? In other words, the wind blows it and it comes back in the other direction. Or till it comes to rest. It has to go and come back and then go to its original position. And the Gemara answers, Teku, let it stand. We don't have any information to determine one way over the other. They're both valid, and therefore the Gemara says, Teku, let it stand. Both of these proposals are acceptable. The Gemara now proceeds to present another question from the Brisa. Hasam Amar Rabbi Eliezer Kedei Mezigas HaKais. Over there in the Brisa from the last Amud, the beginning of this Amud, Rabbi Eliezer said Kedei Mezigas HaKais. And Hacha Kedei Chazaras Dekel. Here he says it's Kedei Chazaras Dekel. Which one is it? And the Gemara answers, Idi ve'idi chatshi yorahu. This one and this one, they're both the same measure. The amount of time it takes for Mezigas HaKais to mix the cup of wine with water and Chazar Sadekel is the exact same measurement. He just uses one in one brisa and the other in the other brisa, but they take the same amount of time. The Gemara now proceeds to present a series of such questions. So the Gemara begins with the first one. In the Brisa, at the beginning of the Amud, Rabbi Yeshua said it's the amount of time it takes to drink a cup of wine. And here he says it's the amount of time it takes to mix the cup of wine with water. And the Gemara answers, Eima, what we should say is, Rabbi Yeshua means to say it takes the amount of time for both mixing the cup of wine, putting water into it, as well as drinking it. So when he said in the previous brisa, Kedei Lishtoise, he means after mixing it. And here when he said Kedei Mezigas HaKais, it means and also drinking it. And the Gemara asks, why don't we say Velema Idi V'Idi Chachi Yorahu? Let him answer that they are both the same, just like we answered for the previous question. The Gemara says we can't do that, because Im Kain, if so, if we're going to say that Mezigas HaKais and drinking the kais are one and the same thing, then Hainu Rebbe Eliezer. Then Rabbi Yeshua is going to be the same as Rebbe Eliezer. As we look in the previous brisa at the top of the slide here, it says Kedei Mezigas HaKais under Rebbe Eliezer. So we can't say it's one and the same measurement. The Gemara presents another such question. Hasam Amar ben Azai Kedei Litzleis Beitza. Hacha Omar Kedei Lishtoisai. There, the Ben Azai says it's Kedei Litzleis Beitza. It's the amount of time it takes to roast an egg. And here he says Kedei Lishtoisai, the amount of time it takes in order to drink a cup of wine. So which one is it? And the Gemara answers Idi v'Idi Chachi Yeruhu. They are both the same measurement, same amount of time. The amount of time it takes to roast an egg and drink a cup of wine is the same amount of time. The Gemara proceeds to ask another question. Hasam Amar Rabbi Akiva Kedei Lagoima, Hacha Amar Kedei Litzleis Beitza. Over there, Rabbi Akiva said Kedei Lagoima, the amount of time it takes to swallow the roasted egg. And over here, Rabbi Akiva said it's the amount of time it takes to roast an egg. And the Gemara answers, Eima Kedei Litzleis Beitza Ulagoima. Say it means to roast an egg and swallow it. So when he said in the Bryce at the beginning of the Amud, Kedei Lagoima, it means to roast it and swallow it. And here when he says Kedei Litzleis Beitza, it means to be tzoyle it as well as swallowing it. And the Gemara asks again, Velema Ide v'Ide Chachi Urahu. Let him answer that they are both the same, that roasting an egg is the same amount of time that it takes to swallow an egg. And the Gemara answers we can't do that because Im Kain Hainu Ben Azai. If so, it'll be the same as Ben Azai, as we can see in the Brisa at the top of the page. Ben Azai said it's Kedei Litzleis Beitza. So we have to say that Rabbi Kiva says it means Litzleis Viligmoya, to roast and also to swallow. The Gemara now presents its sixth and final such question in the series. Hasam Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Over there, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said, he says over there, Kedei Ligmoya Shalish Beitzim Zu Achar Zu. It's the amount of time it takes to swallow 3 eggs one after the other. And Hacha Amar Kedei Ligoima. And here he says it's the amount of time that it takes to swallow 1 egg. And this is the most obvious contradiction. Since it's either 3 eggs or 1 egg, we can't say 3 and 1. We can't say 3 and 1 is the same, because they're obviously not. And also here we have a different answer than all the previous ones. The Gemara says, L'dvarav de Rabbi Akiva ka'amar. There he was saying what Rabbi Akiva should have said. He was saying it in reference to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said that the amount of time of stira is Kedei Litzleis Beitza and Kedei Lagoima, both the time it takes to roast an egg and swallow it. So he was saying in reference to Rabbi Akiva that Rabbi Akiva should have rather said the amount of time it takes to swallow 3 eggs one after the other, since the amount of time that it takes to roast an egg and swallow it is the same exact amount of time that it takes to swallow 3 eggs one after the other. And the reason it's better to choose the amount of time of 3 eggs is since it's all the act of swallowing. It's all included in one act. We don't have to say roasting and swallowing. We could talk all about swallowing alone. We'll also just point out over here briefly that we have in front of us 5 of the 6 different questions that we had here, so we could just look at them to see what changed. The first question we don't see in front of us was a question on Rabbi Yishmael, that Rabbi Yishmael said, Kedei hakafas dekel, and Rabbi Elazar, who argued with him and said Kedei mezikas hakais, he said in the other brisa that it's Kedei chazaras dekel. How does it work? So he explained that chazaras dekel is not hakafas dekel, it's 2 different things. Then we also explained that chazaras dekel is the same amount of time that it takes to dilute a cup of wine. Then we moved on to say that when Rabbi Yeshua, we're moving through the brisa on the top, when Rabbi Yeshua said Kedei l'shtaisei, he meant in order to dilute a cup of wine and to drink it. When Ben Azai said litzleis beitza, he meant Kedei litzleis beitza or Kedei l'shtaisei, to drink a cup of wine, because they're both the same exact amount of time. And that's why in one brisa he says Kedei litzleis beitza, and the other one he says the amount of time it takes to drink a cup of wine, because it's the same. Then when we move along to Rabbi Akiva said Kedei legoima, and in the other brisa he said Kedei litzleis beitza, so he said it means to roast the egg and to swallow the egg. And then we mentioned that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira was simply making a comment to Rabbi Akiva, but that's not what he holds, because clearly he said in the second brisa that it's Kedei legoima, only 1 egg and not 3. The Gemara now proceeds to present a series of similar inquiries. The Gemara begins, we don't have it here, by first quoting, so it would really be in a gray box with an arrow pointing downwards, because we bring the quote in order to lead into the inquiry. So the Brisa said, Rabbi Elazar ben Yirmiyah Omer Kedei sheyikshar gardi nima, the amount of time is that it takes for a weaver to tie a string. So the Gemara inquires, by Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi inquired, the mrachak or the mekarav, these strings, is it referring to, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yirmiyah, are the strings close or far? And the Gemara says, we'll let it stand. We don't know which one it is, so both of them are acceptable explanations. Let the question stand. The Gemara continues and quotes the next part of the brisa. We see it again at the top of the page. Chanan ben Pinchas Omer Kedei shetoishet yada l'seich pia litel kesam. He said that it's the amount of time that it takes a woman to extend her hand into her mouth to remove a splinter. So by Rav Ashi inquired, the mahadak or the loy mahadak, according to Chanan ben Pinchas, is it wedged tight or not, this splinter? And the Gemara again concludes, Teiku, let the question stand, let the inquiry stand. The Gemara quotes now the last and final opinion. Plimui Aimer, Plimui says, Kedei shetoishet yada lasal little kikar. It's the amount of time it takes a woman to extend her hand into a basket to remove a loaf of bread. So by Rav Ashi inquired, and here we have an extensive inquiry. The mahadak or the loy mahadak, was the loaf of bread, are we referring to a loaf of bread that's tightly wedged in the basket or not? Bechadita or batika, is the basket a new basket or is it an old one? A new basket is harder since it hasn't been smoothed out, so it's harder to remove the loaf. Bechamima or bekrira, is the loaf of bread hot or is it a cold loaf of bread? Because if it's a cold loaf of bread, it'll be easier to remove it, since Rashi says that a hot loaf of bread, lechem cham, nimach v'nishmat, it could get squeezed, and the person could also get dislodged from a person's hand. The Gemara continues, b'dechiti or b'desari, was the loaf of bread made out of chitim, out of wheat, or is it made out of barley? And Rashi says that the one of wheat is going to be smoother, and therefore it could slip out of a person's hand again. And the last and final one is birakicha or ba'kusha, was the loaf of bread made out of soft dough or was it made out of hard dough? And again Rashi says that if it's made out of soft dough, nishmat yaser ma'kusha, it's much more easily it slips out of the hand much more easily. And the Gemara concludes once again, Teku, let the question stand, since both of these options on each one of the questions are valid points to bring up, and the question remains. The Gemara now proceeds to present a third discussion. So first we asked, V'chol hani lomali, why do we need kedei tumma, kedei bia, kedei ha'ara? Then we presented a contradiction from a different brisa. Now the Gemara proceeds to a third discussion on the brisa. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Yitzchok bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yechanan said that kol echad ve'echad be'atzmei shir. Each one of these Tanoim, they all made an estimate based on themselves. That's how they determined what's the amount of time for Kedei Tumma, Kedei Bia, Kedei Hara. The Gemara then asks, Vahika ben Azai deloy nasiv, but there's ben Azai that didn't get married. The Gemara presents three possible answers. Iba is ema nisivu pirashave. If you want, you can say he did marry and then he separated. Ve'iba is ema mirabe shmiele. Or if you want, you can say he learned it from his Rebbe. Ve'iba is ema. Or if you want, you can say Seid Havaya L'Reyav, which means that things that are only known to Hashem are Seid Havaya, they're secret to Hashem. L'Reyav, he informs it to those who fear him, to those who have Yiras Hashem. So this is something which is unknown to Ben Azai, because he never got married, and Hashem informed him of the shear of Hara. The Gemara proceeds to present a fourth discussion on the Brisa. At the end of the Brisa, Plimu said that there is Zeichel Adavar. There is a pasuk that supports his opinion. It says in the pasuk, Ba'ad Isha Zaina Ad Kikar Lechem. So the Gemara presents a teaching from Rabbi Vira. Darish Rabbi Vira. Rabbi Vira taught. He said, Kala Oicha Lechem B'loi Netilas Yadayim Ki Ilu Ba Al Isha Zaina. Anyone who eats bread without netilas yadayim is as if he did an avera with a zayna. And he brings it says in the pasuk, Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, Ki be'ad isha zayna ad kikar lechem. So he connects it. Kikar lechem refers to a person who ate bread without netilas yadayim, and it's as if he did an avera with a isha zayna. The Gemara now presents a challenge to this teaching. Amar Rava said, Hai ba'ad isha zayna ad kikar lechem. This wording of the pasuk Ba'ad Isha Zaina Ad Kikar Lechem, according to Rabbi Vira, should have said something else. It should have said Ba'ad Kikar Lechem Ad Isha Zaina Miboyle. What he needed to say Miboyle is Ba'ad Kikar Lechem. For Ba'ad means because of, on account of Kikar Lechem, a loaf of bread that a person ate without Netilas Yadayim. Ad, it's so terrible up to saying Isha Zaina that it's as if the person did an Avera with an Isha Zaina. And therefore, Ella Amar Rava, rather Rava said a different explanation, a different understanding of the pasuk. Ba'ad, ki ba'ad Isha Zaina ad kikar lechem means, Kol habal Isha Zaina, l'seif mevakesh kikar lechem. Ba'ad Isha Zaina, because of a person doing an Avera with the Isha Zaina ad kikar lechem, you'll go so far as to even need to ask for bread from others. So one who does an Avera with a Zaina will end up asking for bread. The Gemara now proceeds to present three teachings regarding Netilas Yadayim. Rabbi Vira taught that one who eats bread without Netilas Yadayim is as if he did an Avera with a Zaina. So now the Gemara presents three teachings regarding Netilas Yadayim, and we'll present them all together. Amar Rav Zrika, Amar Rabbi Zrika, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Zrika, Amar Rabbi Elazar said, Kolam zalzel b'Netilas Yadayim neker min ha'olam. Anyone who belittles Netilas Yadayim will be uprooted from the world. The second teaching, Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav. Rav Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav said, Mayim Rishonim, when it comes to the waters that a person washes his hands with before eating bread, Tzarech sheyagbia yadav lamaylo. A person must lift his hands upwards when he washes. Mayim Achreinim, when it comes to the waters that a person washes his hands with after eating bread, Tzarech sheyashpol yadav lamata. He has to lower his hands downwards. And the Gemara continues and says, Tanya Nami Hochi. A Brisa also taught this. And in this Brisa we find both the teaching regarding Mayim Rishonim, as well as the reason. It says, Hanoitel Yodov Tzarech Shiyagbia Yodov Lamayla. A person who washes his hands, he has to lift them upwards. And there, and then the Brisa continues and provides the reason. We're concerned that maybe the waters will leave and go above his wrist, and then they'll come back and make his hands tummy. What does this mean? When a person washes his hands the first time, that water is tummy, and that's why it's necessary to wash a second time to remove the tummy waters. Now the hand only needs to be washed up to the wrist. So if a person washes his hands the first time, and some of the water goes above his wrist, and then afterwards he washes his hand the second time, only up to his wrist. So the water that was there originally up to the point of his wrist was washed over. So now it's removed and it's no longer, his hand is no longer tummy. But the water that went above his wrist remains tummy waters. It's from the first time that he washed. So if that water goes back to his hand, it'll make his hand tummy. Therefore, a person should hold his hand upwards, so that if it happens that some of the water goes above his wrist, it won't be a problem. Since he's holding his hands upwards, the water will only go further away from his wrist and not enter back the area that needs to be washed. And the Gemara presents the third and final teaching. Amar Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Avo said, Kol ha'oichel pas b'lo niguv yadayim ki'ilu oichel lechem tamei. Anyone who eats bread without drying his hands is as if he's eating tummy bread. And he provides a pasuk, shenemar, as it says, Vayemer Hashem kocha yoichlu bnei Yisrael es lachmam tamei, that the Yidden are eating their bread in a manner that it's tummy. And over there, it was bringing out that the bread is disgusting. So we see that when there is something that's disgusting, when bread is disgusting, the Torah calls it tummy. So too, to eat without drying one's hands is disgusting, and therefore it's as if the bread is tummy. The Gemara now proceeds to present a fifth discussion on the Brisa. The Brisa concluded by presenting the pasuk that said, Ki ba'ad isha zoyno ad kikar lechem. The end of the pasuk says, Ve'eshes ish nefesh yekara tatzur. So the Gemara asks, Umay ve'eshes ish nefesh yekara tatzur. What's the meaning of this pasuk? And the Gemara presents an answer. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan said, what this pasuk means is that kol adam sheyesh bei gasus haruach lebaseif nichshal be'eshes ish. Any person who has gasus haruach will eventually fall into the iser eshes ish. The pasuk is saying the eshes ish and eshes ish nefesh yikara, a precious soul, a person who holds highly of himself, tatzud, she will ensnare him. The Gemara proceeds to present a challenge on this from Rava. Amar Rava, Rava said there's two issues with this explanation. Two parts of the pasuk create an issue. Number one, Hai Nefesh Yekara, this, what it says in the pasuk, Nefesh Yekara, Nefesh Gvaya Mibayale. It should have said Nefesh Gvaya. Gvaya would be the right word for talking about a person who has Gasas Aruach. And furthermore, when it says Tatsud, he Tatsud Mibayale, it should say he Tatsud. Ve'eshes ish, an eshes ish, Nefesh Yekara, a person who has Gasas Aruach, he Tatsud, she will ensnare him. So therefore, Rava doesn't accept this explanation, and he presents a different one. Elo Amar Rava, rather Rava said, Kol Abal Eshes Ish, any person who did an Avera of Isser Eshes Ish, Afilu Loma Teira, even if he learned Teira, Dichsivba, that it's written about the Teira, Yikara Him Mepninim, it's more precious than Pninim, and when it says Yikara Him Mepninim, it means Mepninim, says the Gemara, is Mikoyin Gadol, Shenichnas Lefnai V'Lefnim. So a person who learned Torah, that about the Torah it says Yikarahim Epninim, it's more precious even than the Kohen Gadol who goes Lefnai V'Lefnim. So a person who did the Isser Eshes Ish, even if he learned Torah, which is so precious, still he titzudan al the Dina Shel Gehinnom. It will ensnare him to the judgment of Gehennim. The pasuk is read Ve'eshes Ish, and the Isser Eshes Ish, Nefesh Yikara, even a Nefesh that learned the Torah, Tatzud, it will ensnare. So that's how Rava understands the pasuk. Because Rabbi Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yechanan mentioned, and he said that Nefesh Yekara refers to Gasas Aruach, and how terrible it is that a person who has Gasas Ruach will eventually fall into Isser Eshes Ish, the Gemara now proceeds to present a series of teachings about Gasas Ruach. Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Yechanan Mishum ben Shimon ben Yochai said, Kol Adam sheyesh bei Gasas Ruach, anyone who has Gasas Ruach is ki'ilu oved avodas kechavim. It's as if he's doing avodah zarah. And the way we learn it is, Ksiv Hacha, it says over here, by Gasas Ruach, Tayavas Hashem kol gvalev. It's Tayavas Hashem, anybody that has Gasas Ruach, Uksiv Hasam, and it says over there, by Avodah Zarah, V'loi Savi Toyeva al Beisecha, don't bring a Toyeva to your home. So both places it says Toyeva. So this is what Rabbi Yechanan said in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. And Rabbi Yechanan Didei Amar, Rabbi Yechanan himself said, that it's Ki'ilu Kafar Be'ikr. It's as if he denied in the existence of Hashem. And he brings a pasuk, Shenemar v'ram levavecha, and your heart will become ram, have Gasas Ruach, v'shachachtas Hashem Elokecha, and you will forget Hashem your God. So we see that Gasas Ruach leads a person to eventually denying Hashem's existence. So it's as if he already denies in it. Rabbi Chama bar Chanina Amar, Rabbi Chama bar Chanina said, it's ki'ilu ba'al kol ha'arayos. It's as if a person did an avera of all the arayos that there are. And he brings Ksiv Hacha, it says over here by Gasas Ruach, Tayavas Hashem kol gvalev. It's Tayavas Hashem, anybody who has Gasas Ruach. Uksiv Hasam, it says over there by the Arayas, Ki es kol ha-Tayavas ha'el. All of these Tayavas. So the Torah connects the two. And the last and final one, Ula Amar, Ula said, it's Ki'ilu Bana Bama. It's as if he built a Bama. Because it says in the Pasuk, Shenemar, it says, Chidlu lochem min ha'adam, asher neshama ba'apai, ki bamen nechshavhu. It says, Chidlu lochem, desist from min ha'adam, from man, asher neshama ba'apai, that he has a breath in his nose, he's alive, ki bamen nechshavhu, because what is he worth? So we say, Al tikri bameh ella bama. Don't read bameh, but rather bama. That we see that a person who has Gasas Ruach, because it says Chidu lochem min ha'adam, it refers ki asher neshama ba'apa, he refers to a person who has Gasas Ruach. Ki bamen nechshavu, what is he worth? Ki bama nechshavu, he is a bama. It's like a bama, and therefore a person who has Gasas Ruach, it's like he built a bama. The Gemara now proceeds to its last discussion on this daf. And this discussion comes from the pasuk that we mentioned previously. We mentioned the pasuk where it says, Te'avas Hashem kol gvalev. So the end of the pasuk says, Yad liyad lo yinoke. So the Gemara inquires, Mai yad liyad lo yinoke. What is the meaning of this pasuk, these words, Yad liyad lo yinoke? And the Gemara answers, Omar Rav said, Kol habal eishes ish, anyone who does an aveira of Isser eishes ish. And Rashi says that the correct girsa should be any person who has Gasas Haruach, because that's what the pasuk talks about. Te'avas Hashem kol gvalev. So Rashi says it should be Gasas Haruach. So any person who has Gasas Haruach, who's haughty, so then afilu hikno lakadosh baruch hu. Shamayim va'aretz ka'Avram Avinu, even if he gave ownership of the heavens and earth to Hashem, he attributed the creating of the heaven and earth to Hashem, ka'Avram Avinu, like Avram Avinu, then still we say, Lo yinoke medina shel Gehinnom, he won't be spared from Gehennim. And the way we read the pasuk is Yad liyad, that refers to Hikno lakadosh baruch hu, Shamayim va'aretz ka'Avram Avinu. He gave Hashem ownership of the heavens and earth like Avram Avinu, because it says about Avram Avinu, Hari moisi yadi al Hashem kel elyon kaina shamayim va'aretz. So Yad liyad refers to that pasuk where it says Hari moisi yadi, and the conclusion is kaina shamayim va'aretz. That even if Yad liyad, he's like Avram Avinu, still lo yinoke, he won't be spared from Gehennim if he has Gasas Haruach. The Gemara says Kashuluhula debei Rabbi Shili. This explanation, this interpretation, was difficult to those of Bei Rabbi Shilai, and their question is, Hay yad liyad lo yinoke, these words, yad liyad lo yinoke, yadi mibayele, it should have said, yadi lo yinoke. and the pasuk would be understood. Tayavas Hashem kol gvai lev yadi. Even if he's like Avram Avinu, who said, "Hari moisi yadi lo yinaka," he won't be spared from Gehenna. And therefore, they present an alternative response to the shaila, what's yad liyad lo yinaka? Ela omri debei Rabbi Shilei. Rather, debei Rabbi Shilei said, "Afilu kibul Torah k'Moshe Rabbeinu." Even if he received the Torah like Moshe Rabbeinu, this person was a gval lev. The chsivbei, that about Moshe Rabbeinu, it's written miyaminai eish das lamei. It says from his right hand a fiery law came from it, meaning the Torah. So even if he received the Torah like Moshe Rabbeinu, lo yinokim medina shel Gehinnom. If he has gasus ruach, he won't be spared from Gehenna. And the way we read the pasuk is yad. Liyad means to refer to the pasuk where it says miminai eish das lamei, which refers to the hand. That liyad, to his hand, he received the Torah. The Gemara presents a difficulty on this, and the Gemara says, "Kashilei l'Rabbi Yechanan." This was difficult to Rabbi Yechanan. Ha yad liyad, yad mi bailei. These words yad liyad, it should have said yad mi yad. It wasn't from yad liyad, from one hand to a hand. Rather, it was Moshe Rabbeinu received it yad mi yad, from a hand, from the hand of Hashem. So it shouldn't have said yad liyad, a hand to a hand, but rather a hand from a hand. And therefore, Rabbi Yechanan presents an alternative explanation, and this is the conclusion of our daf. Ella Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rather, Rabbi Yechanan said, what it says about a person who has gasas haruach is as follows: Afilu oiset staka baseiser. Even if he does staka in secret, dichsiv, that it says about this type of mitzvah, matan baseiser yichpa'af. When a person does a matan baseiser yichpa'af, it turns over Hashem's anger. So we see how powerful it is. So even if he gives matan baseiser yad liyad, so it's not in the pasuk, just in the content, yad liyad, still we say lo yinokem medina shel Gehinnom. If he has gasas haruach, he won't be spared from the judgment of Gehenna.